proper spelling, right, of the word there. And people, some spell checks are not going to catch it. I think nowadays it's probably not going to slip through too many of the spell checks. But you just have to be careful about that. So you don't have any spell checks, you don't have any spell check errors. That doesn't mean you're home free. You've got to do another level of checking to make sure you're not using quote unquote correct spelling but incorrect usage. Okay?
Yeah, like for example, writing a sentence, checking the punctuation, then reading it back, like things like that, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Punctuation is another key one. Okay.
Is there a word limit?
I'm sorry?
Is there a word count limit?
Word count limit for your responses?
Yeah.
Not typically. I would sometimes, Sandy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes they'll say in 2 or 3 paragraphs, tell us, respond to whatever. But I don't know that I've ever seen a word count limit, but I'd always say keep it simple. Because if you go on.
Sometimes the proposals will say no more than 20 pages. But for our responses this time, for Monday, I would say give us no more than 2 pages,
Right.
front and back. So that would be 4 total. But I would say try not to give us more than that because we have a lot of them to go through.
Right, yeah.
But in general, solicitations will give you a page count for your solicitation that you should not go over.
Correct.
And font size?
I think that Pamela's going to go through that, but keep it
We're going to go
clear,
through that a little bit later, yes.
clear and concise, yes.
Right, yeah. They will give specific information about font size and other, the way they want everything packaged up and finalized. So we'll get through that later, and if we don't, make sure you keep us honest on that one. Okay, all right. We can move on then, Rosalind. Good questions. Okay. And just ghosting the competition. In fact, I saw something on TV this morning about ghosting the competition. The thing, what we mean by this is that you need to include some solutions that your competition is probably not going to think about. And this would be some other way to make you stand out from the competition. We give an example here where, we might say we offer 24-hour remote maintenance because we know you have employees working different shifts. And I give the personal example from my experience having won the RFP for the city of Riviera Beach, is that we offered training pretty much 3 shifts, around the clock, because we were also going to be training fire and police. And I think that helped to kind of put us, over the, among other things, put us over the edge, because most people say, no, we train from 9 to 5. Well, that doesn't really care for folks who work on different shifts. So just think of something out of the box that you can actually deliver, of course, that's going to make you stand out from the crowd. Remember, they're always looking for that edge. What is it that this vendor is going to provide me that no other vendor thought of?
Hi.
Very good. And any questions? No, I think we're good there.
Hi, Jada.
All right. Also, I'm going to turn this creative page over to you.
Okay.
So
the other piece of it is to use illustrations. I can't imagine what it must be like to go through RFPs and review hundreds of pages, and you may get maybe hundreds of RFPs that you have to go through and evaluate. And so what I find is when I can stand out using image examples of my work, I'm in project management. There's not, it's not like I'm in marketing where there's beautiful graphics, but I know how to create a beautiful dashboard. I know how to create spreadsheets and other things. I can make pivot tables. So I utilize that to my advantage to say, this is an example of the type of reporting I would be able to provide for you. This is an example of the dashboard that I would create for your organization. If you're an architect, you may have plans, you may have prior work. If you're a roofer, someone who's cleaned before and after. So get creative in how you display your work. And also, especially when it comes to budgets and things, instead of just writing it out in a paragraph, get comfortable with tables There are a lot of tools now. If you are not a graphic
Look how
designer
ugly,
or you're not familiar with how to
Emily
utilize
is. Look at how she pouts.
tools that may be able to help you show data in a fun, creative way or concisely, YouTube University is where I always say everyone should start. Canva, I know it's really popular. There are other iterations of Canva, other iterations of Canva-esque type software. But what's really nice is that you can create the tables in there. You can create a nice presentation in there. And so what we advise you to do is really find ways to depict it, because if you're looking at something, I'm assuming for 5 hours of reviewing proposals, think about how you would feel.
Yep. Right.
What do you want to look at the end of the day? I want to also be able to stand out and show them or highlight what, in terms of like Pamela mentioned, ghosting, my numbers, my costs, my budget, something that they can see, the people they can be working with. Make it as concise as possible, and a lot of times using the illustration or imagery can really help with that.
Very good. And speaking of Canva, this whole deck was created in Canva. So to give you an example of how we've used that. The other thing that I'd say is to Rosalind's point about the budget. If you take a look at my toolkit, I actually presented the 2-year budget for an RFP response in a very kind of a color-coded Excel document, and that was really, really well received because folks said their eyes were glazing over from the same kind of mundane PowerPoint, Excel responses. So it definitely goes the competition and stand out. Thank you, Rosalind. All right. So proofreading for errors. I know we are belaboring the point, but we can't tell you enough. Proofreading for errors, spelling, grammar. Get someone on your team. Hire someone who's a great proofreader, who will not let any little mistake get by them. Always get a second set of eyes and ears, and allow yourself, as we're going to talk about later, enough time in the schedule to make that happen. Yep, we're talking about readability, 8th grade language, and then make sure you look at clarity. Absolutely important. Accuracy, you have to have, if you're going to be using numbers and math, make sure it's, those are accurate. You don't want to use